So now we're going to talk about ions. Ions are charged atoms or groups of atoms that have a positive or negative charge. So this is those things that I was talking about. If we had a carbon atom +1 or carbon atom -4, this indicates whether it has a charge or not. So this would be your ion. The ions differ in the number of electrons. So these two right here have two different numbers of electrons on them, in them, than the neutral atom and than each other. So for neutral atoms, we know that the number of electrons equals the number of protons. But for ions, like I've said, protons stay the same, but the electrons are different. We've either lost electrons or gained electrons. So if we look at these examples, we've got a neutral atom of sodium, calcium, iodine, and oxygen. Okay? And now we have an ion, a sodium atom with a +1 charge, a calcium atom with a +2 charge, an iodine atom with a -1 charge, and an oxygen atom with a -2 charge. So these are the typical charges for each of these elements. And when we talk about the periodic table, we will explain why that is. But these are the charges you're typically going to see on these atoms. So don't forget, ion is a charged positive or negative atom. Neutral atoms have no charge. Isotopes, these are a change in the neutrons, so it doesn't affect the charge. All right, so taking away an electron from an atom gives it a positive charge, which means that there are more protons than electrons. Remember, protons are positive. So if we had, let's look at this magnesium one here. If it loses 2 electrons, okay, so currently it has 12 protons, 12 electrons because it's a neutral atom. So if it loses 2 electrons, that means now it's got 10 electrons. Well, 10 of these electrons will cancel out 10 of these protons. So we still have a two protons that are giving it a +2 positive charge. With positive ions, we call these cations. So a good way to think about it is cat. When your cat has a lot of catnip, it's positive and running around all freaking weird. Think about cat as in positive. Cat, positive. Your cat is positive on catnip. It's a good way to think about it. All right, so adding electrons to an atom gives this a negative charge. So that means there are more electrons now than protons. So if we again look at this magnesium atom and we give it 1 more electron, it started out with 12 electrons. We're giving it 1 more, so that means it has 13. Well, a magnesium atom only has 12 protons. So 12 of these electrons are going to cancel out the charge of these protons. And that leaves us with 1 electron. So this is going to give us a -1 charge. If you take a look at how I wrote here, I wrote Mg-. That indicates a -1 charge. You can write the 1 if that helps you, but you do not have to because we pretend the 1 is imaginary. It doesn't have to be written. So the negative ions, we call these anions. So think of angry ions, negative. People who are angry are always negative and upset. So think of negative ions as angry anions. All right. So now let's do some practice. Okay, so we need to figure out the number of protons, neutrons, and electrons for each of these ions. Well, don't forget, the bottom number here is the atomic number, top number is the mass number. This tells me the charge of the atom. So we're dealing with nitrogen here first. Well, protons never change, they always equal the atomic number. So this means we have 19 protons. Well, that positive charge means that we have one more proton than we do electron, because this one is imaginary. So that must mean that we have to subtract 1 from 19, which gives us 18 electrons. And now we need to figure out how many neutrons we have. Well, 39 minus 19 gives us 20. All right, let's do oxygen. Atomic number is 8. That means we have 8 protons. Okay, 16 minus 8 is 8, so that means we have 8 neutrons. All right, now our charge is minus 2. So that means we have 2 more electrons, 2 more angry electrons. Remember, angry anion, electrons, negative. So we have 2 more electrons and protons. Let's add 2 electrons to our proton number to get how many electrons we have. So if we take 8 plus 2, that means we have 10 electrons. So if we were to look at this, 10 electrons will cancel out 8 of the protons, which means now we have 2 electrons left over. All right, so let's look at this next one. All right, we are looking at a calcium atom. The atomic number equals the number of protons, so we've got 20. The number of neutrons, 41 minus 20 is 21. And now we have a plus 2 charge. We have a cation, so a positively charged atom. So we need to subtract 2 from 20, because remember, if it's a plus, that means it has less electrons than protons. So that means we're going to have 18 electrons. All right, but some things to remember are going to be that isotopes, this is a change in the neutrons and nothing else. Ions, this is a change in the electrons, either gaining or losing electrons. So cations, these are positively charged ions. So this means they lost electrons. Anions, these are negatively charged ions. This means it gained electrons. So this is the opposite. Positive, lost. Negative, gained. All right, so this concludes this lesson, and have a great day.